All right, let's get into our first topic then. And would you trust this man? Nigel Farage with the UK's economy. 0207 862 2222 is that number again. Now, the Reform UK leader claims that, and we quote, cretins have been running the UK economy for far too long and reckons that cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin are the key to getting the country's finances back on track. This comes as his party abandoned £90 billion in tax cuts promised in its manifesto. Deputy leader Richard Tice has defended the move, saying that the manifesto was based in a point of time, but since then, the state of the economy has gotten far worse. Do you think that Farage is and his party are the people to sort our economy out? Charlie, what do you think?
Well, I think Nigel Farage and Reform are going to be facing a lot of scrutiny, more than what you'd expect from any other opposition party, because they're so far ahead in the polls. And I think, actually, look, when there is the public sentiment of lack of trust, people gave the Tories an almighty kicking because probably lots of different reasons, but one of the reasons they didn't cut taxes went up, the economy didn't grow. Labour come in promising not to increase national insurance contributions. They did that. And the only growth that I think they've presided over is the growth in unemployment figures. So when you've got a man who has said and pledged to make 90 billion worth of tax cuts before an election, it's headline grabbing. But to recognise that actually he's not going to be able to do that and to actually be upfront with the British public about it before, assuming the polls are correct, he may become Prime Minister, I think it's worth saying, you know what, actually, we do have this as an ambition, but we're not going to be able to achieve that on day one. It might come in year 2 or 3 of a government. So I think, when there is such a lack of distrust amongst the main parties, actually having the gumption to row back on some previous promises in order to be straight with the public, I think is fair play.
So you appreciate this U-turn then? All right, Nina, how do you feel about it?
Nigel Farage is the most dangerous politician in this country today.
Why?
He is because he's a manipulator. He is the consummate politician. Whatever Keir Starmer isn't, he is. He has this sort of affable charm and it's all okay. I wouldn't trust him to look after my cat, and my cat's been dead for 2 decades, frankly.
I think you should come off the fence soon and say what you really think.
The thing is about Farage, the manifesto that they had before the last election was billions of pounds out of whack. And so when he was taxed with this with the Institute of Fiscal Studies, he said, OK, I'll come clean about it. We weren't going to be, there wasn't a chance of us being in power, so we could sort of say what we liked, which is horrendous. Basically, so that's that. And he's lied in the past. Look at all the lies he told.
But hold on, if we kicked out every politician from the Parliament that lied, we wouldn't have many people there.
Yes, but this is a very, very calculating campaign. His playbook is give people hope, and then give them fear, make them fearful. So his is the politics of divide and conquer, make people distrust, make people fearful, so that you're the only person that can solve their problems. It's the actual classic cliche of populism, that you give people simplistic and simple answers to very complex questions that can't possibly work. It's just selling them this dream.
But I think that's the point, and it comes back to the mistrust and trust. And I think he has gone for the headline grabbing of £90 billion worth of spending, which he now recognises can't be done. So to row back on that now, when you're in opposition, when you're not a party in government, when you're not responsible for the economy, when the economy under this government is flatlining and doing a lot worse, I think he will inspire confidence in the markets by being upfront about the challenges and putting forward realistic proposals compared to the unrealistic ones that he has set out before. And I think that's a good thing. That's what we want from our politicians.
Why did he lie in the first place? It was just, written on the, literally, people say, written on the back of an old fag packet. Richard Tice is saying...
Well, it's an aspiration, not a lie.
The thing is, Richard Tice, it is basically...
Well, hold on, we could say that Labour had the aspiration not to tax working people, but some people would say that the income rates, not the income rates, the national insurance rates for businesses was essentially attacks on working people?
I agree on that, but I mean, I didn't vote for Labour, but I can put you Labour's point of view, which was that when they arrived in government, the economic situation was so dire, was far worse than they'd thought, and they were forced into that situation. So they were forced into. So
they're changing their minds. So Nigel can change his.
What I was just saying is that they now have to change it because the economy is in such a dire strait that what they wanted to promise they can't fulfil anymore, which is exactly what Labour said.
The thing is, he knew at the time when he was saying it, it was all.
OK, well, then that does change it slightly.
And the other thing is, Richard Tice has come out and said, oh, well, you know, because the economic situation is so dire, now he's had to row back on things. It's not that at all. I mean, Richard Tice is saying that, for instance, that the £20, £20,000 threshold for income tax. He said that's an aspiration now. You know, so they're rowing back on everything.
OK,
it's all just a complete flim flam.
Let's go to the calls and see what you at home think. Is Nigel Farage the man to sort out our economy? Will from Wrexham, what's your view on Nigel Farage and his ability to handle the financial affairs?
Nigel Farage couldn't even run a bath storm. He hasn't got a clue about how to deal with our economy. Classic example, when we were going through Brexit, he was one of the ones with the buses and saying we'll save £350 million a week when we come out of Europe for the NHS. Well, there's no sign of it, is there?
Well, so you're saying that this is a slight habit maybe of Nigel Farage's. What would you say to that, Charlie?
I don't want to get into semantics. I mean, Nigel wasn't on that bus, I don't think, because
but he was part of the Brexit campaign.
He stood in front of it.
But he was part of that campaign. But look, you've got to pick your lane, Will. You can't, on the one hand, say that Brexit was a bad thing, all the while heralding trade deals with the US and India, which this Prime Minister, a Labour Prime Minister, has been doing, because you wouldn't have been able to do that inside the EU. So you've either got to pick a lane to say we've Brexited and actually we'll look at the successes of that, trade deals in across the rest of the world outside of the EU, or no, we should have remained and we would have had better relations with our European.
But the point being that Nigel Farage was not straightforward with the public. I mean, the Daily Express had a headline pre-Brexit: 77 million Turks will be flooding into Britain, says Farage. Yeah, you know.
I can't remember what word he used. Was it a swarm? Was this the poster in the back of him that ended up not being?
Yes, and he was photographed with a great trail of people standing behind him. So it's just duping the public.
OK, well, thank you very much for your call. Maria from Portsmouth, what's your view on the man?
Right, let's just leave this how we need to leave it. Nigel is there to do a job as an opposition leader. Mm-hmm. And we can go on and on and on about this, that, the other. He's not sat in number 10, is he? Let's have a look at the people that are sitting in number 10 that are there to do the job for us, the people, and they're not doing it. So Nigel may be here, there and everywhere, as everybody would like to say, but he's not sitting in that chair. So let's get back to where we need to be in this country. And the people that are sitting in that chair promises all of this and delivering none of it.
But I suppose the question is, Maria, how can you hold the current government to account if you yourself can't stick to the policies that you pledged that actually got you in representing your constituency?
Well, you can represent your constituency, but you're not sat in number 10.
No, but Maria, you're not hearing what I'm asking you. Maria,
you asked me a simple question.
Maria,
the question was, how can your policy, the people that you voted in, do the job for you?
Sorry, Maria.
Am I wrong?
My question was, how can you hold the current government to account when you yourself aren't sticking to the policies that you pledged in order to get in to represent your constituents that got you into politics?
So Nigel is sitting in a constituency chair, not in a number 10 chair.
Yes.
So he's got to be sitting there for them few people. The people in number 10 have to be there for 90% of the people of the country, and they're not doing a good job. So how really can you put that onto Nigel Farage then?
Well, I tell you why, because he's the leader of a party, and also they are doing so well in the polls that it could...
He's a leader of a very small party that are doing well because the people that are sitting in the chairs are not doing the job for the people they said they were going to do. Then we have people like yourselves that want to keep absolutely going after Nigel Farage.
Charlie's
Now,
not having a
Nigel
go, and
is
it's
a
my job to just
politician.
criticise and...
Well, you're not being actually. I like your show and I watch you quite often.
Good.
But as soon as it comes on to someone like him, there's no here, there, or anywhere.
What do you mean,
You're
someone
very,
like him? What did you mean by someone like him?
You're so anti Nigel Farage. It's unbelievable.
Charlie is not.
I'm defending him, Maria, because I think you're absolutely right. Look, number 10, the people in number 10, the Labour government, they are responsible right now. Nigel is getting the scrutiny because he's ahead in the polls. And if there was an election tomorrow, he would be sitting in that number 10 chair. So I think it's perfectly reasonable that he's under that scrutiny. But I think what we need to focus on today is what he's said, which is he's ditched some of the proposals, or is about to ditch some of the things he said in the past, because he wants to be running a responsible government, a reasonable treasury, where he's saying we're not going to borrow to spend. I think that will resonate with the public, because for too long, under the Tories, government that I was part of, failed. This government is failing abysmally. That's why people are looking to Nigel Farage. They're looking for that third way, and that's why I think he's doing so well in the polls. That's why it's right to ditch things that won't be realistic, that he might have announced in the past, because the economy is tanking even more than predicted. So it's right to propose something that is reasonable, sensible, that I think the public will actually get behind.
I'd like to point out that Reform got into the councils by saying they were going to cut the rates. Well, Kent County Council is just about to put the rates up by 5%. So that's the first one, so you can't believe his promises.
OK, Maria, thank you very much for your call. Michelle from Cornwall, what's your views on Nigel Farage? Michelle?
Hi, sorry. My views are, it's like Farage. He's being honest. He's one of the only politicians that's being honest.
Okay.
A lot of politicians say what they want to say with their manifesto, and then they say what it is.
Yeah, Michelle, do you think he was being honest when he pledged £90 billion in tax cuts?
Hi.
Michelle, I think you might have the TV on in the background and you're having two different conversations, which does get confusing. We might try and get you on, if we can, a little bit later. I'm going to move on to Janice from Essex. Nigel Farage, what's your view?
Great. Nice to see you, Storm.
Hi there.
And your panel. I think that what Nigel is building is a great team. A few of them are already multimillionaires through business. Mm-hmm. The other side haven't. They've not. They've worked in the public sector, not in the private. It's early days yet. He's got 4 years to build a brilliant team. My only worry with him is going to be the NHS. But I think he'll clear out a lot of the public sector workers. That'll save money. But,
what's your worry about the NHS?
Well, because I think he's going to try and go a bit more Trump's way. So we don't want a private.
Got you. OK, he's going to try and privatise it. Janice, it sounds like you have... you're quite happy with Nigel Farage. I just wonder whether you think that he was being honest when he set out a £90 billion tax cut pledge in his manifesto. Do you think he knew he was never going to be able to go through with that?
I think they come out with a lot of things in the beginning. A lot of it is just rhetoric and try and get people on side. Once they get the paperwork and they see how much trouble we're in, they'll realise they are going to be the next government that is absolutely going to be in the doo-doo. They will have no money to spend. So how he's going to manage it will be a miracle. But I've still got faith that him and his team of all walks of life will be able to manage something and maybe pull a miracle out.
So you think this is something that all parties do? They promise in their manifesto, and then when they realise they might actually be in a position of power, they think, we're going to have to retrace our steps. Janice, thank you very much for your call. Riz from London, what's your thoughts on Nigel Farage's ability to sort out the economy?
I don't have a lot of belief in Nigel Farage. I'm not a big fan of his. I think he's really good at stirring up trouble and identifying people's weaknesses and sort of turning around and sort of saying, if we get rid of these people or we get harsh with this will happen. But firstly, he's got no experience in government, and it's not as simple as that. And,
he's got experience in politics, doesn't he?
He doesn't have experience in government, I said, not politics.
No, I know, but
Anybody can become a politician, and anybody can go out there and stir up trouble. I think Brexit was a great example. He stirred up a load of trouble. He got a load of sort of nationalist thought going that if we get rid of these people coming to our country...
I mean, hold on, Riz, I hear what you're saying, but people would say he has the ability to get people behind him. He has that sort of charisma that brings people into the fold, and he's saying what a lot of Britain wants to hear.
Exactly. So he's good at stirring up trouble, but he's not produced any results. The only result he has produced, or he could be responsible for, is a negative one, which is Brexit.
Yeah, well,
it hasn't helped us out. Our economy isn't healthier. It didn't actually reflect all of the country because it was a first past the post decision. Either we're in or we're out. So, he won, but we haven't benefited from it. And it's okay identifying problems and saying these guys are no good at this and these guys are no good at that. But let's get realistic. Economy isn't easily repaired. You're not accountable on the way that our elections work. And it's okay identifying problems and stirring up a load of trouble. But what you do need to do is see it through.
Okay,
I don't think that's something that he's able to do.
Thank you. Do you agree with that, Charlie? I'll just give you the last word just so we can balance it up before we move on.
Well, very briefly, I mean, Liz Truss was one of the most experienced cabinet ministers in government, and when she became Prime Minister, only lasted 49 days. So you don't need the government experience necessarily to drive things through and make the change. I think you need the charisma and to be a communicator and determined and a believer in what you're doing. I think that's what Nigel's about.
We're going to have to move on. Nina's desperate to get the last word in there. Don't forget...